always said the Midwestern way of saying I love you is watch for deer. In other words, it's what you say when someone leaves the house, or when they're going somewhere, when a loved one's leaving your house, if they've been there for a visit. Usually the last things we say to them is be careful. It's because we care about these people, so we want them to be careful because we love them, we're concerned about them, we have a great interest in their well-being, and their blessing and their benefit, and so we use words like be careful all the time. As parents, Michelle and I use that word constantly with the kids, whether they're wrestling too much in the house, or they're doing something they maybe shouldn't be doing, they're doing something that's making us nervous, if they're on the playground, going down the slides or the monkey bars, maybe not on a slide like that, but I'm trying to be careful right here. I thought about filming this over at the playground across the way, but it's kind of storming and a little bit cloudy, and I'm just going to stay close. I'm going to be careful and stay close to home. So this is my playground prop right here behind me. It's nothing a kid would have to be careful about, but something we say a lot to our loved ones. So Moses uses that phrase be careful a couple of times in Deuteronomy chapter 4. Deuteronomy, we said Sunday, this is a book that Moses writes at the end of his life. These are some final reminders, final words of wisdom he's going to give the people before the Lord calls him home and he passes away. And he tells them in chapter 4 a couple of times to be careful. And he says it again in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 9, the verse we dug into a little bit on Sunday. He says, only be careful and watch yourselves closely. Be careful and watch yourselves closely. He's being a little bit redundant right there. Really what Moses is saying right there is be careful about being careful. If we're not careful about how we live, we can unintentionally become careless. It's real easy to live a careless kind of faith. And maybe in this season, it's been a greater temptation than at other times. Because for so many of us, we're not in the regular routines of Sunday morning worship. We're really not in any kind of routine at all right now. Even in our personal lives, we're not living any kind of routine with work and schedules and family. Everything's just kind of different right now. And so when things are not routine, when things are not familiar, we don't have those built-in routines in place, it's easy to become careless, to not be careful. And when we become careless in our faith, it becomes very easy to forget. And they tells them silly what they're supposed to be careful about. He says, be careful, watch yourselves closely so that you do not forget the things your eyes have seen or let them slip from your heart as long as you live. Don't forget God's redemption. Don't forget the God that brought them out of Egypt. Don't forget the God that parted the Red Sea, that provided manna, that guided them, led them, the God that gave them 10 commandments to guide how they live as his people. Don't forget all that he has done as these people prepare to enter into a new promised land and a new season. The generation Moses is talking to in Deuteronomy, their parents forgot all the things they had seen. So Moses says, don't forget how God's provided for you. Don't forget how God has redeemed you. Don't forget how God has helped you. And I think for us in this season, as this pandemic and all this season continues to linger on, I think it's good words of wisdom for us. Be careful that you don't forget how God has redeemed you, how he's saved you, how he's been with you, how he's provided for you. Don't forget how God has been faithful to you. Remembering your history can be a big help when you find yourself in a place of uncertainty. Remembering how God has redeemed, remembering how God has provided, how God has been a present help in times of need, how God has been always and only faithful, can be a big help and an encouragement to our hearts and our spirit in seasons full of uncertainty. And then Moses ends as, be careful, watch yourselves closely, don't forget what your eyes have seen, keep them close to your heart, and then teach them to your children and to their children after them. Take these things that you have seen and teach them to the next generation. When you tell the stories of how God has provided, how he's been faithful, how he's been a helper, that does a lot in your heart as well. That seals some of those memories and those stories in your heart. That becomes an encouraging thing for you. That's a faith-building, strength-building habit to get into, telling the stories of God. And while there's so many benefits that come from you, Moses is saying, teach these to your children and to their children, so the generations coming behind us will remember who God has been and how God has been faithful. Telling the stories of our faith, our own story of what we've seen, how God has moved, has a big impact on the next generation. So I'm hearing some rumbles of thunder. I'm going to go ahead and be careful and head on in the house. But I hope that you would heed these words from Moses, that even in this season, while we're not in the regular routines, while we are not together in a traditional way as a church, you would still be careful, be intentional about how you live, and remember what your God has done for you and in this world, namely through his Son Jesus. May that hope and may that help cause you to take heart in this season.